Go.
Picture this. You and your friends want to go watch a movie. You choose a theater, a time, and the movie to watch specifically. And as you're about to go through the movie booth, a clerk stops you because you all are too young to watch a rated R movie. Even worse, you find out that that rated R movie is rated R because of a few cuss words and a splash of blood. The same blood that you've seen in video games countless times before. That, in the simplest terms, is the hypocrisy of the MPAA film rating system. As someone who wants to go in the film industry, I familiarize myself with the MPAA system, the American film rating system that is used to judge a movie's appropriateness for children and adults. And I've studied its history, its background, and its effects on the industry to come to the conclusion that I have today. And that conclusion is that with the MPAA film rating system's hypocrisy and bias is practically useless in today's film industry. But with a few changes, it could have a place in it. First, I will be discussing the problems of the film rating system, then I'll discuss its causes, and finally, I'll bring up some potential solutions to fix the MPAA film rating system. So let's get started. First, my first problem is its inconsistency and bias. When I talk about bias, I'm specifically referencing the bias that the film rating system has with independent studios and big major budget studios. First, I'll be taking a testimony from Roy Mi-chan, someone who's there to witness the rise of the Exorcist movie, a movie that in his words had people fainting and vomiting when watching the movie. He mentions that the movie should have been rated X, which in that time was basically NC-17 now, which means that no children should have been able to watch that movie. And yet, he still saw children watching the movie. He says that because of the big budget of $10 million in that time's like cash, which is like almost like $20-30 million now, and because Warner Brothers specifically was distributing the movie, he said, and I quote, the MPAA had no choice and was pushed into a corner to make it R-rated, which meant that children with an adult could have watched the movie. Also, it is also worth mentioning that the MPAA was investigated in 2012 and 15 for accounts of bribery because there was enough evidence to try to investigate the fact that some major budget studios were bribing the MPAA. And we'll talk about that why in a little bit. Also, I want to talk about the next problem, which is the inconsistency in the ratings. For example, we have Hunchback of Notre Dame, a movie that includes themes of religion, lust, prejudice, and genocide, and had the tamest rating of G. Also, we have Cars 2, a movie that includes depictions of torture and gunfire, which also had a G, which is the tamest score, which means all general audiences are able to watch that film. No parents are needed even. And then Scott Mendelson, a writer for Forbes, mentions that many movies, many animated movies, specifically from Disney, a major budget studio, have PG ratings, even though he believes all general audiences are able to watch that movie. Specifically, he believes that all those movies that are rated PG should actually be rated G. And we'll talk about that distinction later. Finally, Harvard School of Public Health says from research that movies nowadays versus movies from 10-20 years ago have more violence, nudity, and language. And while that's not like a problem, the problem is that they found that there is no difference or skew in the film rating because of that, which is problematic, to say the least. Another problem with the film rating system is that it actively harms the box office earnings and the film industry as a whole. To quote Elaine Dutka, or to at least paraphrase her, and I need to actually bring out a statistic because of this. Okay, so as this graph shows, these are the box office projections of a group of movies based on their film rating. So this gigantic yellow chunk is all PG-13 movies on average every single year. And as you can see, it takes up 66% of all box office earnings. And then we have this still big red chunk, which is all PG movies. And the green, orange, and blue are all little chunks for R-rated movies, G-rated movies, and NC-17 movies, with NC-17 making up less than 1% of all box office earnings for an entire year on average. Now, Elaine Dutka cites the reasoning for this is because PG-13 and PG movies are much more marketable. PG-13 movies have enough action and violence, but you still don't need parents to come watch it with you. And PG movies are adult enough to not make adults bored, but enough for the entire family. It's a family, it has become the film rating for the family entertainment. And that leaves G-rated movies, R-rated movies, and NC-17 rated movies in the dust. Because R-rated movies and NC-17 movies are way too adult for many kids, while G-rated movies are too babyish for some adults. And this has been kind of a niche that the MPAA film rating system has carved out for these ratings, causing a lot of them to not make enough money because not many people are coming to them. So those are the problems. And now I'm going to talk about some of the causes, or at least potential causes, because there's no certain causes for sure. First, I want to talk about the Hays Code, the film rating system that was before the MPAA rating system. The Hays Code was founded in 1934 and lasted all the way until 1968, and was basically a form of self-censorship that all films during the golden age of Hollywood had to kind of endure, because at that time, free speech wasn't for films yet, due to this landmark case. And while the whole point of the MPAA system is that it replaced the Hays Code, a lot of aspects of the Hays Code can still be found in the MPAA rating system, such as an emphasis on sex and language versus violence, limited tolerance on drugs, and a form of self-censorship, because these films now have to censor, or at least rated R movies and NC-17 movies, have to censor themselves to some degree to kind of be able to be called a PG-13 movie. Also, none of the standards and rules and regulations of the MPAA are public, they're all private, which means not only do we not know why they're doxing points off for some movies, but it also leads to more bias and corruption because everything's happening under closed doors. And finally, some of the rules that we do know of the MPAA are nonsensical at best. For example, you need only 2 uses of the F word to be considered an R-rated film. But if you use it once in a non-sexual manner, you're considered a PG-13 movie. That rule is inconsistent because there have been many films over the past years, The King's Speech, Jojo Rabbit, and Hamilton, that have used the F word twice in the movie and even multiple times. Also, if you have 400 cuss words in a movie, it's considered NC-17, which means most movies won't play it. A lot of movies get around this fact by having maybe 5 or 10 less cuss words than 400. That seems a little hypocritical to me. And finally, we have the fact that, and this comes from Sandy Cohen, who writes for the LA Times, we have some films that include subjects of drugs and sex that for its main audience is like high schoolers because it wants to teach those kids about it, but then they're later rated R, which is defeating the entire point because it's for high schoolers. The high schoolers cannot watch the film themselves. So that's something that Sandy Cohen criticizes because it kind of misses the point of some entire subgenres. So those are some potential causes. Now I want to talk about some potential solutions. I think one solution that you can use is that making the entire process and all this regulations public. Not only will this kind of see will this allow us to see their reasoning, but also if we don't agree with their reasoning, we can at least criticize it to the point where they decide to change some of the standards that they have. Secondly, they shouldn't have any concrete rules regarding numbers of how many times they do this or how many times they say that. I think it should just be like a range, more like a rule of thumb. That way, there are no films that kind of try to go through any loopholes to get out of the fact that they're a rated R movie or an NC-17 rated movie. And finally, I think this is the best solution we have. The MPAA film rating system should just be a suggestion rather than like this regulated like standard. And this is for a lot of reasons. One, because it kind of downplays any kind of criticism that they might get, because if they're just a suggestion, then that's just kind of like their opinion, which is kind of the point, or which is kind of what it is in general. It's just a few people's opinion of how appropriate something should be. And I think instead of it being this regulated subject, it should just be a suggestion, and you as a parent or as an independent person can make your own opinion on it. Secondly, it removes the stigma from adult-rated films like rated R, rated NC-17, and removes the childishness of the stigma of G-rated films, which in turn would help the box office performance of those two extremes. All in all, there are a lot of problems with the MPAA film rating system, but with some grand changes, I think it can carve itself a place in the film industry as of today. Today, I have talked about problems with the MPAA film rating system, some potential causes of said problems, and some potential solutions that they can implement to better themselves almost. Once again, what I've taught, all in all, the MPAA film rating system has a bunch of problems regarding inconsistency, bias, and overall emphasis on some subjects rather than others. But with some changes, it can kind of be beneficial to the film industry as a whole, even better the film industry because of it. And if there's one thing you guys take away from me today, is to not care too much or not put too much emphasis into the MPAA film rating system, and to protest for better regulations, because the film industry might become better because of it. Thank you very much.